In this lesson, I want to talk about something that affects every bass player, and it's super important, something I've talked about a lot before, but it's particularly important for those of you venturing into the 5-string realm. 5 strings are awesome because they have so much power. They've got all this low energy that you can dive into, allowing you to create different lines and different keys down low. But the problem that I see a lot of bass players, 'cause I do a lot of recording with bands and stuff, and the problem I see with bass players is that they're oftentimes not aware of loose ringing strings. And it's usually because those strings are the lower strings and they're kind of muffly sounding anyhow, and it's hard to sort of, in a loud practice space with everybody making tons of noise, to really hear it, and to have a proper bass amp that can deliver the low frequencies of those strings where you really hear the rumble of them, or the room is just too loud and rumbly to begin with. So it's a very common problem, not necessarily the fault of the musician, but might be the fault of the environment. And when you get into the studio and you can really hear things clearly, technique becomes very important and exposed, because now, hey, it's got to be right. And the low frequencies of the bass take up so much energy in recording. They take up way more than electric guitars and vocals, and about the only other thing that takes more energy maybe is the drums, in terms of the amount of actual RMS power that is in the recording. And this is especially true of low strings. So when you're playing a 5-string, you've just added more problems to this technique thing. So when you're playing, let's say you're playing just a regular bass line that could be played on a 4-string bass, something like this. One of the most important things about how to play a line like that is to keep the notes clear. I don't just let the notes ring like, it can get really muddy really quickly. But now when I'm playing that same line on a 5-string, and I'm not conscious of what's going on with the low B because it's really hard to hear, I might be playing you hear? My B is ringing. It rings in sympathetic vibrations with the other strings. So even if I don't touch the B string, if I just pluck an E and mute it, you can hear the ringing of the B string. This is just the B string. I'm muting all the other strings. You're just hearing harmonics and stuff out of the B string. And if I had a proper bass amp that could deliver all the low frequencies that the B string has, it would be rumbling this room around, making the bass line really, really, really muddy. So let's cut to the chase. What you have to do is you have to control that string. You have to be conscious of every string on the instrument and make sure it's muted. If you're not playing a note on that string should not be ringing, unless you're doing something like, harmonics or whatnot. Then the string is supposed to be ringing, but because you're playing it. On a 5-string, it's extra difficult. You have to develop a technique that covers the strings. Notice how I'm holding the bass right now. I'm just standing at the ready, and I'm controlling every string on the instrument. If I just stand at the ready and just let the instrument hang, it makes noise. I got to control it. Now, there's a million different ways to do this. A lot of times what I do on a smaller neck like this, I'll have my thumb sort of wrapped around the neck and always sort of resting on the B string. So if I'm playing notes on the E string, I've got this finger on the B string holding it tight, okay? But also, for me at least, I rest this thumb on the B string. So I've got 2 fingers resting on the B string to play notes on the E string. Now, developing this technique takes years, and this is not something you're going to do overnight. When I'm playing notes on the B string, my thumb is resting on the pickup. Now, every instrument is different. You might not have the same sort of, you can see where I've worn away the finish on this bass because my thumb sits right here. Notice how like my thumb is switching up. As I go higher in the bass, it'll start moving. I'm always switching up. As I move up the neck, my thumb will move. These fingers move, controlling the higher strings. I'm sort of constantly isolating the string that I'm playing between my two hands using thumbs, fingers, you name it. And it becomes second nature. If you have, a full proper bass amp, this rumbling, if you're paying attention to it, it'll drive you nuts. And so you're going to find a way to control this and get it taken care of. You got to be aware though that with a 5-string it's more subtle because very often it's hard to hear just the rumblingness of that B string. It's very low. But it's really intrusive, especially if you're in a PA system, there's a big subwoofer going on, and you're just letting that B rumble. It can really muddy everything up. Everybody's like, why does it sound so bad? Well, the bass guitar might just be ringing. So, you gotta, even here, look, take a look at what I'm doing here now. I'm hitting a high E a high B on the A string. I have a thumb on the B, a thumb and a pinky on the B, and my second and third fingers on the A. Those strings are not moving. That's my stance. I keep my third finger there. I've got 2 fingers to play rhythms. Look I'm covered here. I've got thumb on those 2 strings, pinky there, third finger on the A string, and I'm free to play these other 2. And you got to learn how to twist your muting fingers out of the way when you go down to a lower string. It should just become part of your technique. Actually, I'm giving you an exercise right now. Pick a fret, 2 notes on every string. And no loose notes. So you can't just go. You can't do that. This hand is also involved with this because as I switch down from one string to the next, I'm resting that finger across these other strings to mute them. So they can't ring that easy. Another way I'm doing it here is if I'm playing just a simple note, my middle fingers are resting on the B as well, keeping it from ringing. When you get comfortable with your fingerings and you're not constantly lifting your fingers up to sort of figure out where you are, and you get comfortable and you can rest your hand down on the neck, you can pick the finger that's doing the work, like say this one is going to do the work. Notice my other fingers barely move. They're just getting out of the way. I'm just barely arching my middle finger to get off the E string so that it can ring. But otherwise, fingers are resting. They're comfortably resting loose, so I'm not fretting a note, just resting easy on the other strings. This is something I'd call it secondary technique. I mean, first you got to really learn the notes and learn how to pluck the strings and that sort of stuff. But this should be woven into every step of your technique so that you play clean bass lines. Bass lines are usually single notes. And so it's all about control. Guitar players a lot of time are playing chords and they're just, the whole guitar is ringing. At least on, big full stroke chords. Later on it can get much more complicated with guitar. So I don't mean to say that it's easy. But a lot of time they're playing chords, whereas bass is most of the time a single note. I got coverage. 4 fingers on the B, These are resting on those strings, and I've got my middle finger fretting the E. Look at that. Okay, playing a high note, 2 on the D, pinky on the A, thumb between the E and the B. This is why 5-string is complicated. And 6-string guys, you know, whatever, figure it out. I don't play a 6-string, but the same problems persist. It's probably a little bit easier with the higher strings. The low strings, again, have so much energy that control over their ringing is it's a very important thing. I can't stress it enough. And when you get it together on this, then you become the punchy bass player. You know, then it's like you're gonna seem more energetic in a band than if you're just, you know, and you got strings ringing all over the place. It just doesn't sound good. So I just wanted to point out, again, it's sort of unconscious for me because I've been doing it for so many years. So I have to sort of play and look and see, oh yeah, my hand instinctually has been doing this over the years. And that technique is gradually developed. So I don't expect miracles in a week, but just be conscious of it, be aware of it. Make sure your bass amp has enough low end so that you can hear if your line is clear. I mean, and it's really a visceral thing. It's not headphones. That doesn't do it. You need a real bass amp with a 15-inch or bigger speaker, or a lot of 8s or a lot of 10s or something that has power, that's turned up loud. I know your neighbors are going to hate you, but that's really the way to develop this technique. You have to feel it. It's like a kick drum. You have to feel the bottom to really develop this technique. So, but that's how it applies in a 5-string. 5-string makes this whole problem more complicated because of that low B. And, you know, so watch out. Enjoy the 5-string. It's a great instrument. It has all kinds of beautiful sounds on it that you just don't necessarily get out of a 4-string. But it has some complications because of the ringing string. So there you go. Enjoy. Keep it tight.